right, welcome everyone. We are going to call the meeting to order. It's the Montpelier-Roxbury Board of School Directors for Wednesday, February 4th, and it's 6:32. The first item on the agenda, as always, is public comment, a chance for members of the public to share with the board what's on their mind about what's going on in our schools. This is a chance for the board to listen and take in public comment. We specifically don't respond because it's not appropriate for the board to engage during public comment. It's really just our time to listen and hear what's going on. We usually take this with folks in the room first, and then if there's any folks online. So I see we have a pretty good crew here today. Are there folks here who are interested in making public comment? We've got one hand up. Thank you. Come on forward. And then if you are online, if you're in the room and you haven't decided if you want to make public comment, you can still. And if you are online and you'd like to make public comment, just use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. And we'll move you to be a panelist so we can see and hear you when it's your turn. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Joe Carroll, resident of Montpelier from Independence Green, Flexible Pathways educator at Montpelier High School and the president of our local educators union, the MREA. I'm here tonight because I know that we all share a commitment to our students' safety, dignity, and ability to learn without fear. I'm asking for your partnership in ensuring our schools continue to be places where every student feels protected and supported. Tragic events around immigration enforcement, detention, and deportation are unfolding rapidly, and it's clear that conditions have significantly worsened and may continue to do so. What once felt like a matter of internal protocols is now an urgent concern. We need to prepare for the very real possibility that ICE or other federal agents could come to our schools seeking to detain students or school employees. Right now, our students are afraid and many school workers are unsure of their roles and responsibilities if this were to happen. At best, this fear and uncertainty disrupt learning and undermine the sense of safety and belonging students need to succeed. At worst, we risk sending the message that students are on their own and that adults are hoping to just wait it out. Students should not be asked to carry this fear or responsibility without clear, visible adult leadership. So I'm asking for your support in 3 areas. First, regular and updated training for all school staff, classroom teachers, bus drivers, food service workers, custodians, and support staff, so that every adult in every building understands their role, their responsibilities, and how they can help protect students in daily interactions if ICE is seen on school grounds. Connected to this, know your rights training for all students and adults in case of interaction with federal agents, be it on school grounds, playing fields, or on the way to and from school. Second, clear and public-facing commitments, including board policy when applicable or reasonable, affirming our schools as safe and welcoming places. No single district or institution should have to stand alone to bear the burden of this work with a target. Third, support for educators who are holding space for these conversations in their classrooms and curricula, and for those who want to foster these conversations but aren't sure how. And to the broader Montpelier community, whether you gather in coffee groups at Capitol grounds, religious or cultural communities, the senior center, or other civic spaces, I'm also asking for collaboration and support. I know there's strong interest in forming rapid response teams to support students and families in the event of an enforcement activity. Educators are already being approached by community members who want to help. With coordination and planning, we can work together to create thoughtful plans and action steps to help keep our students and community members safe. And I'll conclude by saying I want to thank the administrators who are already working with grassroots educators in each building to figure out a way through this. It's my understanding that Monday faculty meetings are being dedicated to this. And I saw on the agenda tonight, y'all are considering 2 Senate bills that clearly align with these interests. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to talking about this more.
Thank you, Joe. Amazing. Club action. Do we have anyone else in the room who'd like to speak at public comment? All right. Is there anybody online raising their hand?
Do not see any hand raises.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, where the board moves multiple pieces, items at the same time that are all pretty standard for us. Meeting minutes and things like that. And that said, so we move them all as one package, but at any point a board member can pull something off for discussion. So with said, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move, we approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Jill. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, so then I'd like to invite up our students from Union Elementary and some of the adults with them to present about the Kindness Club.
Nice. So I'm going to start by just doing an introduction and then I'm going to fade back and let everybody else have their moment. But I do want to start by saying it's really fitting that we're bringing this presentation here this week. It's National School Counselor Week. And so this is a really incredible opportunity to raise awareness about the work that our incredible school counselors are doing. So I'm going to segue into introducing our guests tonight. We have Jessica Simpson and Suzanne Frankie, our school counselors, and we're joined tonight by Ida, Nola, Celeste, Wyatt, and Louisa as our student presenters.
We have a slideshow, I believe. Otherwise, I'm in
Gosh.
trouble.
Yeah,
No, we've seen
I've got one job. Kindness Club, I got it. Okay, you're on.
Okay, so thank you for having us. We were excited about the opportunity to come in and talk about Kindness Club. I was trying to remember back to when it all started. I know that Ryan Harity was here when we first started Kindness Club, and it's continued with a break during the COVID years, but it's been a great thing for kids to be able to participate. And students in our Kindness Club spread kindness at UES and out in the community. And last year we were able to secure a grant with some parent help to be able to go and visit some of our elder citizens in nursing homes around the community. And the students often spend time with us in our counselor space, and we meet once a month.
So like Ms. Frankie had said, last year and already this year, we have been able to visit some of our local community, homes around the community. Last year, the students created their own puzzle for the residents. And so some of the things that the residents had said, that this was such a nice idea. We love puzzles. And of course, just loving that our kids are so sweet and wanting them to come back. So just kind words to hear, knowing that we have an impact and that they enjoy having us.
So these are some of our pictures from last spring when we visited the Gary home. The puzzles were a big hit, and we also, through the grant, were able to purchase some new games for them and other coloring materials for them to be able to use even when we weren't there.
This fall, we were able to go to Heaton Woods. And that was really nice because they actually had reached out to us and wanted us to participate. And they had an activity all planned out for us and ready to go. So it was nice, like that not only, we're seeking to engage with the community, but the community is seeking to engage with us. And then hopefully in the spring, when the sidewalks are a little bit thawed, we'll be able to go back to either Heaton Woods or Gary.
Yeah, or maybe both.
Or maybe both.
Yeah. So some of the activities and projects that we have done, we always start our meetings in our space with a read aloud about kindness in some way. Students usually pick the books, or sometimes we do. Last year, we also planted kindness plants and eventually brought those to one of the nursing homes in the area. And this picture on the right is is our group from last week. So we usually have 12 to 15 students every month.
And then most importantly, we asked some of our student participants who were not able to come tonight, some of the things that they love most about Kindness Club. So some things that they had said was that it's good because it's fun to hang out with new people and meet kids in other grades. And I think even as us adults, we agree with that. We work with all students as school counselors, but we also are assigned to different grade levels. So it's really nice to be able to see students that we don't work with on a regular basis. Some other words where it inspires me to be kind to others, even outside of the club. They like the art projects we do, and also that the projects make them feel good, especially when the people remember them and it is a keepsake.
Some other quotes that they have shared with us are that I have more empathy. I loved spreading kindness, and I felt happy, joyful, kind, and good. Now we have some representatives who are going to share their thoughts with you.
So kiddos, when you talk, that black thing in the middle of the table there, that's your microphone, so everybody can hear you at home, okay? Before Louisa.
We get to travel and make art together. We also read kindness books every time we meet. We get to make art and we go to really cool places like nursing homes. We read stories about kindness and we eat snacks. We have a lot of fun. I like Kindness Club because when other people are happy, I'm happy. And if I was in Kindness Club and Kindness Club came to me, it would feel so good to have someone like just hanging out and bringing puzzles or toys or anything. And I like making art here and meeting new people. We have a snack every day. We read books of kindness every day. We go to nursing homes.
So this is Celeste, and students wanted to be here tonight with
Moral support.
moral support.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's our
So
presentation.
that's our
That's a
presentation.
little bit on Kindness Club.
Thank you very much. Wonderful job. Great.
Thanks so much for taking some time out of your Wednesday evening to share with us about Kindness Club.
And
Sounds
you
like-
can honestly say that you are the youngest presenters to the school board ever.
We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the good work you're doing. So thank you.
You did a great job.
Next.
I need you in my office on a daily basis.
Honestly. Our next order of business is to hear from our Director of Curriculum and Technology, Michael Berry, about how the district is working with AI advances.
Really excited that clapping is a part of tonight's meeting. That'll be a first for me at a board meeting, so thank you in advance.
Do you want me to post that? It might be hard for people to read.
Yeah, I think I can just speak to it.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yep.
So the board received a PDF of kind of the things that we're doing in the district to address AI and AI awareness and all sorts of things. The first page, I'll just walk through kind of what we're talking about and what we're doing. And if there are questions, just let me know. From the get-go, I'm really proud and happy of the work that we're doing as a district. And I think we're doing it right and we're doing it well and we're going slow to go fast. And that's kind of a theme throughout. So in terms of student engagement, we have a MHS Student AI Club that's actually having its first meeting this Friday. That's a student generated club. I'm going to be the advisor and Matt has really helped out quite a bit as well. They're going to be working towards a presentation in April of high school students that are presenting solutions to societal problems, either using AI or societal issues that are caused by AI. So they're going to be working towards that. We're really excited about that. This next one sounds like a really small thing, but it's actually been quite a conversation starter. We have a bulletin board in the hallway outside of my office and Nick's office, where we put different topics about AI up. And nearly every day there is a gaggle of students that gathers out there, and they get into a fairly heated discussion about AI. And we've been fortunate enough to kind of engage in that as well, all because of a old school bulletin board.
I was going to say it's analog, right?
It's very analog, and not something that we really expected. So that's been really interesting and good. And then I've been invited, and I brought some colleagues as well to different classrooms and different settings to talk to students, answer questions, but also to listen and see where they're at with it. And it's been really fascinating all around, just to learn and listen and hear different people's perspectives and worries and questions and wonderings. And so we're continuing to do that. For staff support and development, I generally put out a lot of content and guidance and information and questions about once a week. On Fridays, usually I send out a memo to staff about anything that the AI team is doing, anything that we're working towards, state guidance that comes out, anything like that. So we're trying to make sure that we're getting information to folks in the field as often as we can. I've been working with individual teachers on different aspects of AI in their own practice, wonderings that they have, but also folks that do not want to use AI, but want to have knowledge to be able to talk about it with students or caregivers or whatever they might be doing. So that's going on. And then we recently just got rolling on a new professional learning model where each week I work with one teacher from each building for a full day, and they receive a training around AI and how they can either use it in the classrooms or become knowledgeable about it to discuss it with their students. It's a choice for them. And it's been extremely fun and it's successful, and we're getting a lot of good feedback about it. And I think it's a great way for us to approach that. So every week staff have an opportunity to do some training. And it's been really good. We have an MRPS AI leadership team that's made up of classroom teachers and some administrators as well. And we've spent the first part of the year really digging into different frameworks that are out there for AI awareness in schools and unpacking those and discussing what does that mean for us in MRPS, and really coming to an understanding about that. That team also helped design the professional development that we're doing for the teachers, and they did a really great job with it. And later in the presentation, you'll see we've also started to make connections to existing board policies around how AI impacts those or things that we may run into, trying to get prepared and have some sense of procedures and guidelines that we can do in certain situations. The admin team suffers through multiple trainings from me because I get excited about something, or Libby and I find something that we think is going to be great. And we try to do that at every meeting a little bit, if not a lot. And that's been really good. We've got curriculum development that we are working towards. We're working towards unpacking the Vermont state guidance that just came out and finding a way to develop a curriculum by choice where teachers and students can choose whether or not they interact with AI. But what we're not going to leave up to choice is whether or not we're going to talk about it. We really need to be discussing it and the impacts, and folks need to be knowledgeable about that. So we're working towards that. I just mentioned the procedures and guidelines. We're doing a deep fake incident training for assistant principals coming up. A deep fake is when a person's image, voice, or video is made using AI falsely. And so we want to make sure that we're prepared to address that should that happen to our staff, caregivers, students, in any case, but also to proactively educate around that. In terms of community connections, we and other schools in the state have access to a Vermont-based parent information night. That's a webinar style where parents can submit questions and that they are discussed in a forum with folks that are in the know around AI. We are hosting, Montpelier High School is hosting the Vermont AI and Impact Student Symposium in April 29th. We have 3 teams signed up for it so far, one from Northfield, one from Essex, and then our home team here. And then we've been fortunate to be able to collaborate with a lot of folks across the state as they are working on this in different schools. One of the benefits of my role in curriculum and technology is I have 2 sets of folks that I can connect with across the state and kind of hear what they're working on and doing. For instruction and learning, I mentioned the AI standards and curriculum that we are working towards. And then we're looking at different ways that AI applies in different contents or applications, or doesn't apply or impacts or becomes a question of ethics. So we've really been discussing that. And then there are systems level things that we're looking at, ways to find efficiencies in using AI that benefit students, that benefit staff, and get us doing something better than what we are doing. We are continuing to focus in on our data privacy and security protocols, if not more than we were. And I feel pretty confident in that we've got things set up the way that they need to be. And then there's also developing the infrastructure that we need to be doing this work. How do we monitor what's going on? How do we keep people safe? What are the protocols when something goes wrong? How do we set up permissions? All of those things, the infrastructure component. Those are all happening all the time right now in MRPS. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions about that before I go on.
Can you say a little more about the symposium?
Sure. Yeah. So the Student Symposium is a chance for either individuals or teams of high school students to come and make a short pitch, 5 minutes maybe, about a solution to a societal problem using AI to solve it. And I'll give you some examples of that, or solving a problem that AI causes. So without using AI. So a couple of the entries, and I don't want to give away too much because the students are really proud of it, but one is taking 20 years of topography maps of Montpelier and using AI to analyze flood patterns over the last 20 years to see if there's anything that we've missed. In that, another group is looking at, is there a better way that we could predict power outages in this area? And another group is looking at how can we impact the support for homelessness in the area using AI. Another group of students that wanted to address issues that AI causes is proposing an idea similar to the calories on the back of a food box for everything that uses AI, so that you could create a personal AI diet for yourself and know how much you're using each day. So those are all kind of the pitches, and it's kind of like Shark Tank. They're going to come and they're going to present, and we're going to have some judges and some sponsors, and hopefully get students involved in the conversation and give them a space to share.
The full day weekly staff training.
Yeah.
That's, I'm imagining it's a rotating cycle of people.
Yep.
Or people, do people, is there like a wait list, or I would guess that?
Yeah, I'm booked out till April now.
And is there a mechanism to bring what they're learning back to teams and to,
Yeah.
so that you can keep, sure you're not covering the same thing week to week? I mean,
Well, so it's one person per school per training. That's the best way we could do it to not impact the substitute challenges that we have in coverage. And it actually creates a really nice cohort at a small group level, which if you've ever been in a full group tech training, they're pretty terrible. So having a small group to be able to really personalize that learning, and it's an elementary teacher, a middle school teacher, and a high school teacher. So it's a nice to have that connection that we don't usually get in a small group in the district.
Like in the Kindness Club.
Yeah. So it's different people every week that come to that. And we have a level 1. So we're doing level 1 AI training right now. And we have a level 2 and a level 3 planned, so that even folks that have taken the level 1 can continue their learning onto 2 and 3. But we're going to wait to roll those out until we get some critical mass around level 1. And I did some calculations. If I get 3 people every week between now and the end of the year, I think it was, something like 30 to 40 people trained. And we're hoping to offer some in the summer and potentially keep it going next year. So it's been a good model. I've really enjoyed it, and the folks that have done it so far, I've really enjoyed it. On the next page, there's a kind of a step chart. And one of the things that we have with our plan, and we've watched other institutions across the state do this poorly, and we've learned from that, and they've shared what they would have done. The first thing that we really started with is infrastructure. What are the things that we need from a technological standpoint to be able to even manage this before we turn things on and let things loose? So for example, before we started training teachers, there are different levels of AI tools. So you need licenses to give those to teachers. So we figured out how to do the trainings, giving the teachers that attend the trainings the tools, versus what we've done in the past and other districts have done in the past, where we buy the tool, we don't really provide a thorough training, and then folks are kind of left to figure it out on their own. So we've really done that base work of what are the infrastructure needs that we have, and then we've moved on to training educators, and then we'll talk about what we're doing with students. We don't want to jump to students, which is what a lot of colleges and universities around the United States have done. They've purchased a tool for students, they've given them all free accounts, and a couple weeks later they say, we should probably talk to the instructors about this. We're not going to do that. We're going to make sure that our teachers feel confident in either discussing AI or how it works, or using it in appropriate and ethical ways, in a human-centric way. So we're really following that trajectory to make sure that we do this right and we do it well. And then the last page of that is just an example of some of the connections of policy guidelines and procedures that we made. So the MRPS AI leadership team took a look at the policy C11, the student freedom of expression, student conduct and discipline, responsible technology use, and hazing, harassment, and bullying, and drafted some procedures and guidelines for our administrative team to start to look at. And at a worst case, it gave us a walkthrough of, okay, how would AI impact hazing, harassment, and bullying? How could it? What should we be prepared for? What are some things we should think about in regards to that policy and connected with that policy? Or freedom of expression in school-sponsored media. What does that look like? How do we keep that safe? How do we, those kinds of things. So it was a great initial walkthrough. And then we have several more policies that the next time we meet, we're going to go through and do the same exercise again. So that way we're not caught flat on our feet if something comes along.
I have a follow-up for you on that. Have you run up against anything where you've identified, oh, we don't have a policy for this and we could really use one? And
Well, the
that way
tricky
how the
thing
board
is,
could support you?
yeah, most advice right now out there is to not develop policies for AI, because it changes so rapidly, and policy development and management
Is
can be
not.
slow, right? But to really stick in the zone of procedures and guidelines, because we
Okay.
can be, agile in responding to those things.
Mhm.
I have not found an area where we're not sure yet that there
Okay.
isn't a policy that doesn't connect. I have not found that. I think there are, just like AI itself, there are going to be situations that nobody anticipated at some point.
Mhm.
But I think most of our policies actually cover broad enough areas that we're going to hit those.
Can use it. You can use them. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Any other questions from board members?
No, just thanks for giving us update for work.
Thank you.
I want to thank Mike. He is a leader on this in the state. He doesn't like a lot of accolades, but he's been knocking it out of the park with teaching the rest of us about AI. He's creating all these gems for us to make our worlds easier. It's really been something phenomenal. So thank you, Michael, for doing all that
You're
good
welcome.
stuff.
Just really quickly, what, can you just give an example of something that you have done or a change that you've made where you've incorporated AI. And how it's impacted like your work, like that, like
Sure.
just like one of those gems that.
Tell 'em about you.
Yeah, so a gem, just so everybody knows, is a custom chatbot. That's what Libby was referring to. It's like we create a robot to do a task and do it really well and consistently every time. And in theory, that's going to be more efficient and provide something that we otherwise weren't getting to. That's kind of what we do. But our focus when we build things is also not to replace humans in that. It's to get the humans to a different place in what we're doing. So the example I would give is we have a lot of tools that monitor what's going on with students' computers and what they're doing. We have device time, we have device use, where they go on websites, what's bad, what's good, all of that stuff. And we've had that data for a long time, and it's just kind of running in the background. We never really look at it unless there's a problem. And so I created a gem that creates a weekly report to administrators that lets us know trends in that information that I wouldn't recognize in the spreadsheet or the pattern. Like, for example, it said the week that we did a lot of AP testing, it showed that at the high school, there was a significant increase in a couple of key sites that students were going to for AP testing, for research, for these different things. And it advised that we go and applaud those students and check in with those teachers because look at what everyone's focused on in this school. Or there was a week where the elementary school was doing some research around snow and snowfall, and we saw that that was an increase there. It also tells us, hey, there's a lot of distraction sites that are coming up. You might want to check these, block these, consider these. But it took data that was sitting there and that we weren't using to engage conversations and turned it into this really weekly accessible, like, hey, I saw that your kids were going and doing research at the BBC website all this week. Tell me about that. What was that? That looked pretty awesome. It was stuff that I don't think we would otherwise have proactively known. And now we've got it dialed in. It takes us 2 minutes. So on Monday, I run it 2 minutes, send the email, everybody has that. And there's this immediate usable information to have good conversations with our educators, but also maybe to be proactive about things that might be going sideways. And we've done 5 or 6 different ones that do similar things for us. It's pretty awesome.
I just wanted to finish with a question and a comment. I've appreciated the links to those parent nights.
Yeah.
I think they've been in the school newsletters.
Yep.
But I haven't seen them in a couple of months. Have they just paused them or?
One of the presenters became ill and
yeah.
she's on the rebound now.
Okay.
So we're going to start those back up.
Yeah, I think that's a great way for parents to stay connected to this. And then my question is if they have any other advice for caregivers who want to be engaged as their kids are starting to take on use of AI and you know, how will they know what to do?
Yeah, that's a tricky
to support.
question. That's a really tricky question. I think that what people need to be aware of is there's all sorts of feelings about it. And so I'm not trying to convert anyone to using it. But I think that the fact that there are all these different feelings means that's all the more reason that we need to talk about it and have our educators know how to talk about it and have the infrastructure in place to keep folks safe. So it's just, I think, approaching the conversations, I've been amazed by the reactions that I've gotten, not all positive.
Yeah.
And the range of those emotions. And I think that that's really important for people to know. I think there are some good websites and resources for parents to get information. I think one of the things is just to be really aware and transparent about what's really happening. So if you have an iPhone, that's running AI constantly. Mm-hmm. And so I think we just need to start, like, I really like that student idea about the AI calorie count because it's everywhere. So when we talk about it, it can't just be kids sitting in a classroom using AI. That's not where it is. So I think it's just creating a global awareness, being open to talking about it, taking breaks from it, keeping, you know, like, if anything, our conversations have led us to be more aware of screen time, more aware of human interaction. How do we intentionally put those human turn points into activities and lessons And I think that's kind of a great response to all of this. But there's a lot of resources. The UN has a great website for parents about AI. There's a bunch of stuff out there.
Okay.
Yep.
Might be something for the leadership team to think about a little bit more.
Yeah.
The other thing that Mike and I have really started to dig into a little bit in our one-on-one meetings is that we have to be future focused. And if we're leaving this piece out of the conversation, then our kids will not be prepared because this is part of their world.
Yeah.
And so we cannot ignore AI and its impact on society. And we have to teach kids to use it and use it well and all those good things, or that they won't be prepared for the jobs they're going to have to do. So Mike and I have really focused in on what does future focus look like for MRPS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your work and for the presentation. Oh, yeah. All right. Next up is for the board to discuss potentially supporting two Senate bills, 208 and 209. These came across my inbox and I wanted to bring them to the board as something to discuss whether or not it makes sense to support legislation like this in general, and then whether or not this is whether or not we would want to, what position we would take. I guess the first question is more, should we get involved in legislation like this in general? And then the question is, what position would we take? When I saw them, and S208 is about law enforcement transparency. One example of that is that in the bill, it would require that all law enforcement agents, unless there were real safety issues in terms of like gas in the area, or they were handling that kind of an emergency, that they not wear facial coverings, and that they identify themselves with name and or badge. So that's what S208 addresses. And S209, that bill makes adds community areas that are such as schools and healthcare centers and homeless shelters to the list of sensitive areas where civil arrests are not allowed. Right now, schools are not on that list. And so given that there is an awful lot of activity, and we heard about it during public comment, and what that activity is, how it's impacting our community, it felt like it would be a good discussion for the board to have about whether or not these are pieces of legislation for us to take a position on, and if so, what should that position be? So I thought I'd bring them to all of us for that conversation. So I'll turn it over and just open it up for thoughts from board members.
I want to thank you for adding this. I'm curious, so if you maybe kind of answered my question right as you finished your statement, but as I was thinking about this, what would board support look like? Would it be we have a, I don't know, non-binding resolution that we support S208 and S209? Is it that we write a letter to the legislature? I'm just curious what the options are for board support.
As part of answering that, we could also decide to handle them differently. They're on here on one line item, but they don't have to, they're not like a
Absolutely.
package. And I think that's part of what we would decide. We could simply pass a resolution to just a statement of support for them. If we were to support them, I would be in favor of having a formal letter come from the district to our representatives and to statewide officials that say, we think this should be law. Something, that would be more of like a formal advocacy position. But that I think can be up for discussion.
And my other question really quickly is, are you aware of similar conversations occurring with other boards?
I'm not aware.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you too. These are obviously super important issues currently. I generally support I think just given a lot of the things at stake right now, I think it's good for us to have a voice. I think a lot of these things affect us, and we do have a voice. I do have, I think particularly about some of the language in 208, I'm just not. I do not have a lot of expertise in law enforcement. The way I read this is, does it prohibit like undercover law activities?
Yeah,
right. Which, I mean, it appears from the language that there's not an exemption for that, and I know that. I mean, we definitely don't want masked agents pulling people off streets, but there are a lot of law enforcement activities where the identification of a police officer as a police officer can impede those, and I'm just not sure that we have the expertise as a board to weigh in, even though I support not having masked folks making unlawful arrests. But I also, you know, don't want drug stings and other operations that arguably make our community safer hampered by something where we're just not quite sure what we're doing.
Somewhere, Jim, I read that it doesn't include undercover operations and that sort of thing. I don't know if it was in there or I read it somewhere else. We talked about this at the equity committee because we weren't sure whether the board should take a stand on things like this or not by encouraging legislation. And one of the things we concluded or talked about was that at least the second bill on the list does talk about schools specifically. The other one is more general. And we didn't, so we really weren't sure where to come down on it. I mean, I think we all feel that it's important, but I guess the question is, you know, is it something that the board should get involved in?
Yeah, I haven't read, I just skimmed both, and the kind of the question I had, the other one is, and maybe it's answered in the bill. I wouldn't want people using schools as places to make like a targeted arrest and kind of using schools as a vulnerable place, because obviously we want to be a safe zone. But what about if there's criminal activity taking place at the school?
I was wondering the same thing. The term civil arrest is pretty broad.
Yeah.
no, I think it does actually address, it doesn't preclude if there's actual,
Yeah, it does have an exceptions line in it.
yeah.
Okay. That would be my only concern though.
As far as the second one, 209, the way that I have been thinking about it is that this list of sensitive areas already exists. And so there's already protocol for what to do in all of those current places. And this would just be simply adding schools as well as shelters, court proceedings, municipal buildings, and healthcare facilities to that list of sensitive areas.
That makes sense to me, and it directly implicates schools.
Yeah, I was more for sort of our attention on S209 because of its direct connection with schools and the safety of our kids in schools and our staff and teachers, anyone in the schools. Whereas the other one is more of like a political statement, which is well and fine, but I feel uncomfortable as a board making a statement about something of a political nature that many people in our community may disagree fairly, thoroughly. Whereas if we're talking about the safety of kids in schools and staff in schools, that makes more sense to me. It's about safety.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. This doesn't come up often for us as board members, like should we take a position on legislation? So I think just us talking through whether or not to do it in the first place, take any kind of position on any legislation is helpful because we want to make sure we're not setting any kind of precedent where we would become just like activist for just the sake of being activists. I think it's important for us to be thinking about where do we have kind of like ground to stand on. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I was part of the conversation at the Equity and Engagement Committee where we were thinking more along the lines that with this direct connection to schools by putting them on the list of sensitive areas, it would probably make sense for us to make some kind of take some kind of position on it. And leave the 208. Maybe that one makes less sense.
Yeah, and just kind of like my thinking on it, I think is kind of, I mean, I think we're, you know, I think it's a fraught place for the board to just get into advocacy for advocacy's sake, but we are experts on schools and we are experts on how schools work and how we want our schools to work. So I think Bill's the touch upon schools and what goes on here on, you know, in a variety of ways is very fair game. And I think, you know, it makes sense for us to, you know, if we have an opinion to let the legislature know, because otherwise they could make that policy or not make good policy.
Yeah, I think
Or
we
not
want
for anything.
we want
That's what
the
it-
people at school to feel safe, right? It encourages, it's easier to learn if you're feeling secure.
Yeah, for all of the reasons that have already been articulated, I without a doubt support us. Supporting S 209. I also would be in support of S 208. And yeah, I understand why. We may not want to, but I mean, it's I mean, we flew the Black Lives Matter flag from our flagpole, and that certainly was a political statement and one that our community supported. And so you know, we do as a district stand for values that I would be willing to support.
Yeah, I think the difference between the Black Lives Matter flag is, for one, it's I think it's very important for our school community to, you know, support that message. It's also not a policy statement. Like I have opinions about law enforcement, but I'm not an expert, and I'm not. Yeah.
You can disagree with me, Jim. It's okay.
Yeah. No, but I mean that's kind of my like I'm definitely supportive of the thrust of 208, but as a school board, I don't know what I'm not considering about that bill. Whereas I have a much better idea of what I'm considering and not considering about 209 and how it affects schools.
Also, was the Black Lives Matter flag not driven more by the student body?
It was.
Which changes it in a sense, like if the students came and came to us and were like, you know, support these things. I mean, we had Joe here just talking about sort of what 209 seems to be getting at. But if there are a lot of students coming to us, then I would feel really differently about whatever they wanted, you know, like. So that difference is also there.
I just wanted to see if Sam, Casey, or Jill wanted to weigh in.
I think I'm similar to Scott. I'm not an attorney and I'm not a legislative council drafts person. Two of our senators are sponsors of these two bills. So I think that's also sort of another reason why it's nice for us to sort of like weigh in, throw support. The details, I don't think we have to solve, but I think in general, we could write a letter supporting, you know, S209 and the, you know, the safety of traveling to, entering, remaining at, or returning from school. That seems pretty reasonable. And then we had Joe speak earlier, and then we actually just got a note from Biba Khan, who just left, also sort of expressing hope that as a board, we could sort of put some support and encouragement behind the folks who work in our buildings and our administration, and just what can we do, if we can do anything, to communicate a sense of safety to the level we can. So I would like to just sort of express that sentiment generally, and if supporting S209, letting our lawmakers, our senators know that we like where they're going and they at least have our ear. I don't think there's any harm in that, personally. Casey.
I'll chime in just with agreement, kind of what Jill just said, that, I think I see the alignment with 209 more strongly than 208. And if we were to come up with a statement or letter of support, I think if we stuck to the broad terms of what we know and know is good in this bill, because I don't understand all the details in the exemptions portion, or think that this board should have the capacity to dig into those details. But I think if we articulate very clearly that's the safety in schools and the addition of schools to the list, that would be a great voicing of the board.
I also think 209 is very important for us to take a stance on, in general, because it's specifically addressing schools. I think whatever statement the board decides on should also be shared to the broader, caregiver and like school community. So it's known that this is what we've decided our district, stands for. So it's like being very open and honest with our community, not just being like telling our legislatures what we think, also telling our community.
Yeah. And if helpful, unfortunately, like there are students who used to go to MHS that are going to school in Minnesota right now, and there is absolutely a very real experience that people are having in schools of having people wait for them or going to the schools. It's happening. So we're not being alarmist by being concerned and wanting to support whatever little way we can.
Right.
At least signaling that we want to make our schools as safe as possible.
Right. And if this can provide another layer of support, it's worth it. Because, yeah, as you just said, Jill, it's very real. And as we heard earlier tonight, it's very real for those who are in our schools and who are working very hard to just keep things going, so that the kids in our schools can have as normal of an experience as possible. And, personally, if I could stand outside the school and stop them myself, I would, but I don't have that power. But it seems like, to be able to make this move on behalf of those who are in our buildings every day and doing this work, is a small step that we can take.
Yeah, Mia, I totally agree with you, and I'm thank you very much, Jill, for pointing out that we just got the email, because it was very timely. And so I was listening to what you were saying, Mia, and reading the email and reflecting on what Joe had said, and the last sentence of Biba's email really rang true to me. And so it just says, writing to ask that we provide our administration with the public support and resources they need to respond to the current reality. And so I guess, given Biba's words and what you were just saying, Libby, what is it that we can do to equip you with the resources that you need to respond to our current reality? And I'm not putting you on the spot.
Is that rhetorical, or you want?
No, I mean, I think
Right now?
that's our role as a board in general. And so I'm not putting you on the spot, but like, I would love to know, like, what would it be helpful for us to be in support of S209? Would it be helpful for us to make a public statement? Like, what are the things that you would feel better equipped having in order to respond?
In regards to 209, I've reached out to Chief Nordenson, because I don't know enough about the police process. Like, I just simply don't have the expertise there. Like, the idea of a civil arrest, like, what is that? That's a new term for me. So I can Google it, but I want to hear from the person who is the expert in our community about that. Simply because I don't want to hinder Montpelier Police Department's ability to do their work that they do pretty well. Either. Right. So I don't want to inadvertently do that. While at the same time, I don't want anybody on our campuses that shouldn't be here because it's our job to protect kids, right? So there's a little push and pull there, but I want to hear from Eric. He's the expert in the room on that. So I need to hear from him first. Because like Casey, I don't understand the exceptions either. Like it's written in a language that I just simply don't know. So I would love to hear from Eric first before anything else on 209. In regards to the other pieces, we met at a leadership team team today, talked for 2 hours. Right now, we do not have a direct request of the board, but we will certainly, we don't hesitate to reach out if we need to, if we need it. So right now, we don't have one that's specific. However, we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I also just want to, be clear about what is going on in Minnesota. It is the Trump administration, federal agents, ICE, and the Border Patrol that are causing the problem. The Minnesota police have actually been great partners. They've done a great job of protecting community members and community businesses.
And I want to make sure that can happen here.
So I want to make sure that can happen here, and I want to make sure that our local police have a good relationship with us. That we not lump them all together, as I think happened a few years ago, and I think it's caused, like, honestly, a fair amount of harm both here and in Burlington, in terms of police and community relationships. And we should foster a good relationship because a lot of local police are the first defenders in our community. They have tough jobs, and let's not confuse them with public.
Yeah, and I wasn't making that implication. I know you're not saying.
I know, I'm not either.
I just want to make sure that the experts and people who make arrests, I know what this would impact, how this would impact them.
And I just want us to be careful that we just don't lump everyone in a law enforcement uniform with, the thugs that are, going out on behalf of Trump administration. Kidnapping, just doing, fascist type things.
There's a group meeting in Montpelier around these issues, and I know they plan to meet with the police department to just connect with them and try to figure some things out. So stuff's happening here, which is good, collaboratively.
So do we feel ready to make a decision tonight, or would we like to give it another couple of weeks to hear from the community and hear from the police chief?
That sounds reasonable. I mean, there's some very obvious, the exceptions is still only written about court, for example. There's some work that needs to be done here in drafting this, and I hadn't fully articulated that point, but I absolutely would not want anything in here to prohibit law enforcement from coming here when we need them to help us stay safe, as they have had to before. So but I think we can express support for any reasonable message we can send. And I think maybe I'm happy to do this if that would be helpful, reach out to our senators that are sponsors and let them know we talked about it, and they're very supportive. But we're waiting to hear more and want to make sure we don't cause an unintended consequence.
I had already reached out to them with some questions.
Oh, great.
So they know we're discussing it. I think there was the idea of simply saying we think that it makes sense for schools to be considered safe places.
That's a common sense law. Yes.
So that is another thing I think we could say, is that in, advocating as the bill gets continued to work through committee, please stay steadfast that schools, the whatever, I can't think of the word right now, not spirit necessarily, but the intention for schools to be safe places is definitely something that we could advocate for.
Yeah, absolutely. Like families and children, dropping off their kids, they should be picking up their kids. Kids should expect their parents to be out there and not have someone driving them out of the car. That should not happen.
And same with our staff. should
Same with our
feel
staff, yeah.
absolutely 100% safe to do their jobs in
Yep.
our schools.
Yeah, they should feel that someone's not gonna come into their classroom and create a horrible situation.
So is it reasonable that, I mean, 2 weeks for our next board meeting to be able to act? I mean, we could figure out, it seems to me a civil arrest is very different than a criminal arrest, right? So it would not be, and again, this is, 5 minutes of Googling, right? And so maybe we get 2 weeks of like checking in with people and then come back and be able to act in our next board meeting or decide not to.
I also noticed that at the end, like the very end of 209, it says definition. And it says, as used in this subsection, civil arrest means an arrest for the purpose of obtaining a person's presence or attendance at a civil proceeding, including an immigration proceeding. So they have defined civil arrest. I feel like this might need to be a little bit more.
But it could be a custody proceeding. It could
Yeah.
it could be other types of proceedings that they're expected to go to where we might need our local law enforcement to gather somebody to come to a custody, like that may be a needed thing.
I think it doesn't really talk, like, it doesn't really include what that would mean at schools for civil arrest. So I think it's sort of lacking that. It seems very focused on court.
Yeah, there is more
yeah.
detail about what happens in the court,
Mhm.
which kind of makes sense. There's
Mhm.
more activity
Mhm.
of this nature.
I could just be overly cautious. I just want to hear from Eric. He's the expert here.
That's reasonable.
I think your idea sounds good, Scott. 2 weeks should be enough time to gather anything we need and then we can decide what to do.
Can we encourage anyone that has strong feelings, opinions, or perspectives to share them with us, please?
Yes, always. Okay, so we'll table this discussion for now. And speaking of legislation, we will have and we have just received another request, this one from the VSBA around House Bill 842. So I'll send an email to board members to be able to look at that over the next couple of weeks, and that will likely all be up on the agenda. If not in the next meeting, then maybe the one after that, depending on what our agendas look like.
What's the gist of that?
That one has to do with healthcare negotiations,
Yep.
I think. So some changes to how the state negotiates health insurance on plans. Yeah. So this is turning out to be a fairly active legislative session for education, which we anticipated. All right, so then, thank you everyone for that conversation, very thoughtful. Thanks for definitely bringing the considerations of the safety of our students and staff to the fore. Moving on then to policy monitoring. This is where we just monitor how we're doing at adhering to our policies. And in this meeting, we're monitoring policy C7, student attendance, and C8, pupil privacy rights. We can take these as a package as we usually do, but of course, during discussion, if board members have any questions, they can pull one out. Is there a motion to approve the monitoring reports for C7 and C8?
I move we approve the monitoring reports for C7 and C8.
Thanks, Lynn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Scott. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Those pass. And then we have a first reading for policy C1, education records, and a fourth reading for policy C9, MRPS nutrition and wellness policy. Rhett, can I kick this over to you to
Yes.
give us any context as the chair of the policy committee?
So the policy committee had the VSBA review our policies. They had a lot of recommendations for required policies that had been revised. Many of those will be coming to us over the next couple of board meetings. They required almost no editing or sort of MRPS specific language, and so we didn't see a reason to change them. So that's the case certainly for education records. The nutrition and wellness policy did have some yes. It did have some sort of choices and some language that we did we were encouraged to choose either sort of this direction or that direction. And so it's been reformatted a few times. There were some things that, you know, at one point it talked about time outside and throughout the day, and we can't control what happens after the school day. And so there were some things in there that we sort of had to sort of iron out. And we did get some feedback from, please help me with the head.
Jim, Jess, and myself and the principals.
And also for the nutrition.
Jim
Birmingham,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, there have been some minor changes. I think this came before the board prior to getting feedback. We kind of caught our lines of communications crossed. And that's why it's a fourth reading at this point, I believe.
And I think Anna, after I made the agenda, Anna suggested that since the other policies really have no changes in them and they're required model policies, that we'll probably just put them all on the agenda for next time and they don't have to go through 3 readings, especially if they're not going to be changed. So we can put them all on there for a reading next time. And then it's much easier for Anna to do the 10-day warning for policy adoption as a big lump sum instead of multiple ones. If that works for the board and the policy committee.
That was how we thought about it.
That's fine with me.
We do the Board of Education did or the Department of Education
Agency.
They did the agency they did put out a phone policy. So that's going to be before the policy committee now, and it's going back and forth with Jason and other stakeholders in the district so that we can get that to sort of coincide with what we're already doing. And I think the transportation policy may have some district specific, you know, questions that we have to talk about, and those will be policies that will have multiple readings when they get before the board.
I just had a question about each one. The education records policy, I'm curious, I understand it's required, so, but I am also curious how it's different from our pupil privacy policy.
The pupil privacy policy, thank heavens we have a monitoring report on it right now. The pupil privacy policy is more to do with outside agencies asking to survey our students.
Oh, okay.
It's that kind of thing.
Okay.
Educational records are the records we keep on students internally.
Okay.
Yeah, the pupil privacy is kind of a weird way, like that implies something different than what the policy actually is.
Got it. Okay. And then nutrition and wellness mentions a progress report. Is that just the monitoring report or is that something else?
Say it one more time.
It mentions a progress report in the nutrition and wellness policy. And I think it's part of the procedures, maybe.
Annually, the district will issue a progress report to inform and update the public about the content and implementation of this policy.
That would be
So that would be a monitoring
monitoring
report.
yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if there was something else in addition to that. All right, those are my questions. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. These we are not voting on. They're just in front of us because they'll be warned, right, for passage later. So I am not going to entertain any motions. Don't even think about it.
Until now.
until right now, which is a different motion. We have, we're gonna go into executive session to discuss negotiations. So we have our, two-part motion. And for anybody who has the agenda up in front of them, I welcome you to state it out loud, please.
Rock, paper, scissors.
You want to do one and I'll do two?
Oh, yeah.
Move that it would substantially disadvantage the board to openly discuss.
You're trying to do it from memory.
stuff.
Negotiations.
Public.
That's an excellent go. for it.
Negotiation.
You got about 20% of the words,
9 years on the
Not
board.
bad, not
There you
bad.
go.
19% more than I.
Go for it, Jill.
Rhett, I'm gonna do one, Rhett's gonna do the second.
Thank you.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the board's strategy regarding labor relations agreements with employees would clearly place the board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses the proposed contract terms in public.
Thank you, Jill. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can't talk.
Okay, Rhett,
All right, I move to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the board's strategy regarding labor relations agreements with employees under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1, capital B of Vermont statutes, labor relations agreements with employees.
thank you, Rhett. Is there a second?
I'll say,
Thanks, Scott. Any discussion?
because it's capital B.
Because it's a capital B. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,